So whilst Changing the Chemistry is a charity, and I'll come on to a little bit how we work, because clearly I'm also quite keen to persuade as many people here as possible, if you're not on a board, to consider a board position. You know, I do have a number of board roles, and in fact one of them is I'm Vice Chair of Scottish Canal, so I am also, as well as being involved in the private and third sector, I'm also involved in the public sector as well. So what I'm going to talk a little bit about is why diversity in the boardroom is important, and probably a lot of you will know that, but I'm always keen to re-emphasise it so that when you're out there you can spread the word. Talk a little bit about how you can get into the boardroom, and don't, you know, whatever age you are, there is almost certainly a board out there for you. Just in charities alone, there are over 20,000 charities in Scotland. And they all need governance, so there are boards, and boards are fun. And then I'll talk a little bit about the networks, not actually just Changing the Chemistry, but Changing the Chemistry works in a very collaborative fashion. We work with the Scottish Government Public Appointments team, we work with Women on Boards, so I'll also mention Women on Boards. I'm on the advisory board of that, so that's another of my voluntary roles. And talk a little bit about how we work and how we support people who are looking for board roles. My background is private sector, so I was financial services in the city, and my husband, who is Scottish, and I then moved up to Scotland because we'd had enough of the city, actually just before the crisis, and so we've been living in Scotland since, let's see, 2007 in terms of full-time living in Scotland, but we've been coming over for some time before that. And I am absolutely passionate about diversity in all types. So I'm delighted to hear you talking about, you know, it isn't just the protected characteristics, it's about cognitive diversity, so how you think, and then it's also about your experiential diversity, social diversity, and other things. Actually, last night I was talking at an event for Bank of Scotland, which was an internal event, and it was more around cultural diversity, and it was very interesting. There were two Indians and a Pakistani talking about some of their experiences, and the two Indians, both of whom who'd grown up in England rather than Scotland, you know, they'd had bricks thrown through their window when they were young at their home. They'd had people score National Front on their doors and letters saying, you know, shoot your mother and that sort of thing. It just makes me think what a privileged background I had, and I probably should face that. I have had a privileged background, so you know, I appreciate I'm not as diverse as maybe I could be, but that's why we need more of you. So, diversity matters. I'm sure you know this. Diversity makes teams smarter. There's a lot of research out there now that shows that diverse teams perform better. You bring in different perspectives, different ways of thinking, different background. It helps innovation, problem solving. There's research that shows that even just bringing a bit of social diversity, social background diversity, actually helps the other people in the group think differently, because they kind of go, oh, there's someone come a bit different there. I need to actually take a different perspective. I need to make sure I'm considering all the issues. So it really does make a difference. There's a McKinsey report that came out in February 2015. I'm going to have to read some of this because it gets a bit complicated in terms of definition, but it looked at gender and ethnic diversity in leadership teams. And it looked at the profitability of almost 400 companies across the UK, Canada, Latin America, and the United States. And they identified that there was a significant statistical relationship, i.e. correlation, between the diversity of the leadership and the financial performance of the companies. So it really does make sense. Your organisations will perform better if you have diversity. And what they showed, this was looking at the private sector, that if you're in the top quartile of gender diversity in your organisation, you're 15% more likely to have returns above average for your sector. So you're likely to be 15% more profitable in terms of this is how it was measured if you have a greater gender diversity in your leadership team. Interestingly, if you have ethnic diversity, if you're in the top quartile of ethnic diversity, 35% more likely to outperform. And obviously, if you look at the statistics in Scotland, that's a bit more challenging, because I think in the census, 2011 census, Scotland's only 4% non-white, so that's a little bit more challenging. If we then look at, there is some research, this is from Credit Suisse. Again, this is looking at companies because in trying to measure it, it's easier to look at the private sector because we have return data. The performance of companies, so the red line is the entire universe, this bottom one, but the performance increases, and this is the top line, is you've got 50% women in your leadership. So there's lots of evidence that shows that this isn't just about fairness, it's actually all about improving performance of organisations. So I am very keen on diversity. And so this is why I want to encourage you all to join a board. So there are lots of reasons, and I say there are lots and lots of boards. So as I say, I'm on the board of Scottish Canals. When I joined the board of Scottish Canals, so my background's in the city, I knew nothing about canals. I knew nothing about property, because actually Scottish Canals is about, it's not just about canals, it's also about regeneration. If you think about the Kelpies, if you think about if anyone's been to Pinxton Water Sports in North Glasgow, all of that's been done around the canal, around Fountain Bridge in Edinburgh. And in fact, we're building at Mary Hill at the moment in Glasgow again, which is another deprived area in Glasgow. So Scottish Canals is about all sorts: regeneration, tourism, maintaining some scheduled ancient monuments. I chair the Audit and Risk Committee, so that gets a bit scary because, I don't know, Linlithgow, the canal goes alongside. If the canal bursts, right, that's going into like drowning a lot of Linlithgow. Not good. I stay calm, roughly. But it's fascinating. So why join a board? Really interesting. Shows you're keen, shows you're ambitious. Develops your leadership skills in a different way. It will enhance your career. It gives you different experiences. So in terms of my boards, you'll see in my CV, in my bio, yes, so I've got Scottish Canals. I also am on the board of Community Charity in the Highlands. I did know nothing about charities when I started that, and again you can get training. So that we invested money in a local farmers' wind farm, and now we've put, I think, over 60 grand back into the community of Glenurquhart and Strathglass, which is west of Inverness, and that's about 2,500 people, but it's quite a rurally remote area, even though it's not that far from Inverness. So you can learn all sorts of things, as I say, about renewables energy that I didn't know that I knew. It'll enhance your CV, provide a point of difference. If you're taking any career breaks, it gives you an element of resilience in terms of your career, and it expands your network. And I have met, in terms of what I do with Changing the Chemistry started 5 years ago, and I've met an amazing set of people. And Changing the Chemistry, as I say, is about diversity of thought. So everybody is welcome to join. I'll explain more later. In terms of what value you bring, I meet lots of people who maybe completely underestimate how much they have to bring. You do not have to be 50, as I said earlier, or 60 even. Particularly, there'll be charities who, for example, are dealing with young people, or even public sector bodies. I can see Kirsty back there. She'll get very cross if I don't pitch in for the public sector. There are all sorts of organisations which might value your input and your perspective, so don't underestimate it. So you've got what you've professionally learnt, the experiences you've had. It may be that actually you can help the executives in mentoring. You might be able to share your connections. So the lady at Bank of Scotland yesterday I was talking to, she deals with small and medium-sized businesses, and she's gone on a couple of boards, one a charity and one law site, and she was finding that because of her HR experience, actually that was quite valuable to that organisation, even though that wasn't her job, right? So she was business banking, advising businesses, but she dealt with HR and her teams. So there are all sorts of different things that you can bring. It may be speaking to the media and stakeholders, for example. So there are different opportunities to use your different perspective, which you will have gathered throughout your career, wherever you've got to. And there are, therefore, a variety. I've touched on a variety net was mentioned, both women on boards and Changing the Chemistry were quite different. As I say, I'm involved in both. So women on boards, you do need to subscribe if you want to look at the vacancies, but they have actually a lot of free stuff on their website, details on why you want a board position, how to go about doing your CV, how to do application forms. And they will advertise vacancies for free, meaning for people who want to put them on there, they will promote them. And then Changing the Chemistry. So Changing the Chemistry, as I said, we're a charity. We work to improve board effectiveness through diversity of thought. And the way we work is we do not charge a membership fee, but it's very like WiPSL actually, we expect everybody to contribute. And everybody can contribute in lots of different ways, and again, very similar in that. So we have some people who organise the events, we have some people who will actually help with the administration and running of the charity, we have some people who will make connections or make introductions, some people give us office space for running events, a whole range of different things that we do. And so anyone who joins just has to be willing to help. And I'll go into a bit more detail about what we do to help. Firstly, women on boards. So that's a social enterprise. That's much, you can see from the numbers, this is much more UK-wide and kind of mass market, I guess I would say, providing information, connections and encouragement. So I was chatting with a CEO of a large charity yesterday, and she wants to go on a board, but she's not quite sure how to position herself, particularly if she wants to go on a private sector board. So I said, well, I'm going to go and talk to the MD of Women on Boards to say, is there someone we can connect her to who's been through that experience that she can share with? And say they are trying to make board vacancies more transparent to people. There is still, the public sector very, very good about making vacancies public and so that you can find them. Charities, it's harder, but both Changing the Chemistry and Women on Boards will promote vacancies. In the private sector, only a small percentage, tiny percentage get advertised. And so this continues to be the message to people, and one of the things Changing the Chemistry is doing is to get people to come and use these networks to get more diverse rather than just the tap on the shoulder, oh, we know you. But Women on Boards has done a lot, and there is a big, it's a wider, bigger network that's not as I guess as intimate as a kind of Changing the Chemistry approach. But they've had a lot of success stories, which is fantastic. And then Changing the Chemistry. So firstly, it started when I was on my own board journey, building my own portfolio. And Lord Davis was around, he was talking about women on boards, and I thought, well, it'd be much better if I share my experiences rather than everybody having to go through this themselves and work out how it works. So hence, Changing the Chemistry started. And so we will help people, with their CVs. I personally find women, it's particularly a non-exec CV, so a non-exec CV is kind of a bit more, not so much just what you've done, but what you've learned from what you've done, and therefore it's much more sort of about you and what you're really good at. And I don't know about you guys, but I mean, a lot of people find that's really hard to talk about, I'm really good at this. And I think it's a gender thing, a lot of us struggle with, I'm really good at something. So it's quite, I find that a lot of people find that the sticking point of getting their sort of CV together will help people think about what their competencies are, what it is that they would bring to a board, because again, you're not doing. On a board you're not doing, you're overseeing, you're challenging, so we'll think about that. We will help people sort of with their, what the questions are, how they will do interviews, and we run mock interview panels so that people can practice being in front of a panel. And all this is free, but everybody has to help. And then I realised, having got my own portfolio, well, it's all very well getting there, but as those of you who are on boards will know, it's not necessarily that easy once you're there. And every board is different, and I'm on, for example, I'm on the Fettes College board, okay, so a nice posh school, frankly, and I guess I come from quite a nice background, but the board is 20 people, right? Trying to get a board of 20 people to work effectively, the research shows ideally it should be 8 to 12. So I'm leading the government's task force, and guess what? I've got agreement to shrink the size of the board. So there are some challenges there. We also go around promoting the benefit of diverse boards, so such as the event I was at talking at yesterday, and we'll help organisations who want to think about what it is about their business or their organisation that makes it difficult to get diversity. What is it that's holding people back? Because there are two sides to this, right? When Lord Davis originally talked about women on boards, he was a lot of it was quite focused on the supply side and were there enough women there. And I think we proved that there are lots of very capable women there. My personal view would be we don't necessarily look like the, apologies to any men who might be offended, the alpha grey-white man who would normally go for a board role. I think we tend to maybe look a bit different, have a different set of skills, and hence in addition to supplying the women, there's also, if we're talking about gender diversity, there's also the demand side. And so it's actually about helping people understand their biases. So I meet lots of chairmen who go, it's about getting the right person for the job. And I go, absolutely, if it was a meritocracy. But it's not. We're all biased, right? We all naturally want to recruit people who look and sound like ourselves. And therefore, you know, we have to make people aware of that and understand that they may think they're making a meritocratic decision, but they're not. And therefore, we need to call that out. And we have had some great success. Mentioned that we've filled over 75 board roles. In addition to that, we've also worked with actually a number of public sector boards, which led to the work that we now do with the public appointments team. So we worked with Highlands and Islands Enterprise, Visit Scotland, Scottish Natural Heritage, Scottish Canals. Scottish Canals has a 50-50 board. It's only 6 people, so it makes it quite easy. But we also worked, so with Visit Scotland, we got, and we actually never actually said we only wanted women, but so we pitched for diverse candidates, and the success rate, well, the applications went from 28% female to 63% female. And they appointed, that time they were appointing 5 people, 4 of whom were women. Highlands and Islands Enterprise now have 4 female board members. They appointed 4 new ones. Not only were 3 women out of the 4, but 3 were members of Changing the Chemistry. In fact, the other 4th existing female board member is also Changing the Chemistry. So Changing the Chemistry has a 1/3 of the high board. Scottish Natural Heritage, again working with them, we did help on the application form and workshops, and they appointed 5 women. So they've hit a balanced board. So overall, we've had some real successes. And continue to want to spread the word. Because we're a peer support network, we have probably about 220 members now, so again we're at a similar size. Because operating as a peer support network, we don't want to explode, but we're continuing to grow quite fast. So it's just managing that is my challenge. And so finally, thank you for listening. I hope I have persuaded you all that you all have lots of skills that you can offer aboard. And there's a fantastic array of things out there. In addition to public sector organisations, if you don't have conflicts, consider that. As I say, charities quite often work well if you're if you're in a full-time job, because they quite often meet in the evenings. Scottish Canals is 20 days a year, not huge, and lots of kids reading papers at home. So anyway, if you're willing to contribute, anybody, male, female, willing to contribute and support the cause.